maybe the stag analogy like isn't good for the going in for the kill because there's this pressure in like sales of like closing. I guess it's more like you have like this food and you're putting like the food towards the stag and the stag is coming towards you and then you're like putting like can I put like a harness on you? And they're like, yeah, okay, you can put a harness. Okay, cool. Can I put this saddle on you? Is that okay? Like, okay, yeah, good for a saddle. But can I get on you for a couple of minutes? Like, how would you feel about that? You're like, okay, yeah. And it's like, all right, let's ride onto the sunset together. Let's fucking do it.
Alrighty. Today we welcome Tim Johnson, Head of Brand Partnerships at Blossom Social, and that's the social network for investors. Before Blossom, Tim was early at Wattpad, which is a storytelling platform that was acquired by Naver for a whopping 753 million Canadian, so that was around 600 million US at the time. And Tim was also the head of brand partnerships there. And in between those two, he also launched his own app called Couply, which helps couples strengthen their relationships, and that got over 500,000 downloads and became the number one app for couples on the Google Play Store. So welcome, Tim.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to be here, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
I'm excited. It should be fun. So before we get started, do you want to give a quick, just chronological overview? I just gave the lightning fast intro, but just give the quick intro on like how you got started at Wattpad, what you achieved there, and then why you left and started Couply, and then finally the last transition over to Blossom and where you're at now.
Yeah, the prior to working in technology, I had a 10-year career in the non-profit space. I worked at the Red Cross for 10 years, which was really amazing and definitely set me up in good stead in some ways for a pivot to tech. But I love working in the non-profit space. Maybe I'll go back to it like in the far future. But as part of working in the Red Cross, I did fundraising and I did it at a few different organizations, one of which was a university and I met with a major donor, and he was considering this big investment he was going to make in the university. And I got talking to him. I was like, "Hey, man, how did you get so rich to be able to do a big donation like this?" He was going to write a check for 150 grand, which is like a big check. And he said, "Oh, I started a business and then I worked at some other startups." And I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." This is a mature guy. He's like, maybe he was 64, 65 at the time. I was like, "When did you start your business?" And he's like, "Oh, I sold my first company when I was 30." And so that's when I became like a multimillionaire. And I've kind of just been playing in the space ever since. And I was 30 at that time. And it just hit me like, do I want to be the guy right now in my 30s that's interviewing these wealthy people that have done all these amazing things? Or do I want to get out there, get in the arena, and try and make something happen? And that's when I decided to pivot into startups. I was already a huge fan of Wattpad, and I knew about Wattpad and believed in that product so intensely because I was an author and I posted my book on that platform. And so I set my goal to get a job at Wattpad. At this point, I was like a director level at a university, so I was really well paid, and it was a good job. Um, but I had to like drop down to the beginning. So when I started at Wattpad, although I ended as a director of brand partnerships, I started as an SDR, doing cold calls, cold emails. But that experience is so valuable because when you start at the bottom, there's a little bit less pressure. It also allowed me to sharpen up a lot of my skills around outreach and building business from absolutely nothing. And that skill set I'm now leaning on much more at Blossom. So that's kind of a little bit deeper in how I got into it. So I got into Wattpad because I was an author and they knew me and I just stayed on them until I found a role there that kind of fit the skill set I had.
So at Wattpad, you said you're an SDR. What kind of sales were you doing? Like Wattpad is a consumer-facing, platform. So who were you calling exactly? What were you working on?
Yeah, Wattpad is a consumer-facing platform. So if anyone listening to it, it's like YouTube, but for books and stories, essentially. Regular people like me and you upload our books chapter by chapter, build an audience as they grow. And so our brand partnerships business at Wattpad was around tying brands into this young audience that loves entertainment. And you have an amazing storytelling platform as well, obviously, Jason. And there's a few common things that people that love books like. One, they also buy a lot of books. So people that want a Wattpad bought 6 times the amount of books than the regular person. Two, they love TV and entertainment. People on Wattpad um, went to the cinema 2.2 times. It's like more than double the regular person. And they're also six times less likely to be in a sports stadium, which is a very interesting stat. So but it meant like if you are marketing films, if you're marketing TV shows, these are the tastemakers. These are the people that you see dressed up at the fan expos. You know what I mean? These are like
Totally.
hardcore fans that are real tastemakers in this kind of area. And so that's who we sold into. So it was doing partnerships with entertainment clients, TVs, books, movies, all of that good stuff were the core partners, and those are the folks that I was reaching out to and building relationships with.
Got it. So what brought you out of Wattpad and what led you to kind of start your own thing right
Yeah.
after?
Yeah, I mean, having this front row seat at seeing an amazing consumer app getting built, I had my own app idea, and I'm not like a I'm not really like that. I think there's a few different founder archetypes. So I'm not someone that desperately needed to be a founder. I just had an idea in which I was reading some relationship books. I thought, oh, it'd be really cool if I could like go through this with my girlfriend, but I don't want to go through it with her on like in a book. Like, why do we have to mark this stuff down on paper and do these quizzes and then answer it up at the bottom? Like, why don't we do this in an app? So I started looking for a good relationship sort of app, and there wasn't any. And when I realized there wasn't any, I thought, holy fucking shit, there is an opportunity here to build something amazing.
Yep.
I couldn't sleep that night. I like came up with, and it hit me all in one. I was like, it should be called Couply. Like it should be called Couply, and the domain was free. I bought the domain. I made the website. I put some Google ads out there that night. The Google ads got like a 5% click through for people to sign up for the waitlist, which is insane. Like to see a 5% CTR is amazing. So I knew that there was some appetite there, and then I started chatting to some of the devs at Wattpad. I was like, hey, actually, I just chatted to one dev, Dinesh, who became my co-founder. I was like, hey man, I got a bit of an idea here. We thought it would be a good side hustle, but it started to explode. Jason, we met at the Web Summit conference. We pitched Coupley at Collision conference just before and ended up winning Collision pitch. And that got us a little bit more press. That got us more downloads. And when we hit 100,000 downloads, Wattpad also got acquired. So it's sort of like, it felt like the right
Mm,
time. We'd hit
yeah.
100K downloads organically. Wattpad had been acquired. And it was like when you're early on at a startup, like Wattpad, it's sort of like living on a pirate ship, you know? Like you're in survival mode. You've
Hmm.
done things that maybe you're not proud of. You know, you've like eaten each other. People have had to walk off a plank. There's been mass executions. You've done some shit and seen some shit. And then I just think the thought of going onto a larger organization like Naver looks amazing, but I knew that deep down, like it'd be very difficult to put someone like me on that cruise ship. It's like taking someone that's lived the high seas on a pirate ship and has like definitely had some wild experiences, and then trying to put them in a uniform and like white gloves and try them work on like a cruise ship. They're not going to be good. You're like, that person isn't wearing any shoes. Why is he serving me food? You know what I mean? He's also like,
Absolutely.
so I kind of know what I am now, and I'm an early stage person. That's where I thrive the best. And so building Coupley was going even earlier and getting into that.
Awesome. All right, last thing on the chronology before we get into the nuts and bolts of all this. So Couply to Blossom, what was like when did that transition happen and what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, so we worked on Coupley for 2 years, and while we had some amazing tailwinds, we had some headwinds too. And I think we sort of realized, or came to the realization, in my opinion, and I could still be wrong here, is we felt like we had an amazing, really stable company. We built a really good product that was loved by a lot of people, but our attention was very average, or below average, I guess. The more I spoke to users, so Couply is an app that helps couples get out of when they're in a bit of a pickle. So every relationship goes through ups and downs, right? When your relationship is going through a down phase, you need help fast. The best couples therapists have a 3 month waiting list. That's no good. People typically aren't calling a couples therapist like they would so like, hey, can I book like a car appointment in 3 months' time to change my winter tires? They're calling it like
Right.
999 or 911, right? They're like, hey, I have a fucking emergency. My relationship is about to end. Like, how can you help? And Couply became this really great product for that immediate problem phase. So couples have a problem, they get on Couply, they fix the problem, and then they leave. But
Hmm.
we had a churn issue in which people wanted to use Couply to solve their problems, and then they churn. So they both like it, and it works. They churn, right?
Right.
Neither of them like it. They churn. One likes it, one doesn't like it. Well, it's a couples app, so it needs both of you doing stuff. They churn. The other one likes it, the other one doesn't. Same thing, churn. So we had this kind of four horsemen of the churn apocalypse, and I couldn't really see a way of us getting out of that in the runway that we had left. Um, and so I felt like it would be better served as a more of like a side project. So Couply became a side project for us, and that left me open to get back into the game. I'm in like a WhatsApp group of app founders, and I said, like, boys, this is it. I'm done. I'm moving it to a side project. I'm banking all the cash we're making. I'm going to pay back our investors, and I'm going to go back into a different app, early stage. I want to do brand partnership stuff. That's where my core expertise is. And I didn't really know what I was going to do exactly. I kind of like Wattpad would have taken me back. I think TikTok. I was kind of chatting to. I didn't know if I should go to like a really big company and just like chill, not chill for a bit, but like be part of like a try and join the cruise liner for a bit, you know. But then my friend called me, who Max is the founder of Blossom, and he was like, "Listen, man, I'm doing these brand partnerships on the side of my desk. Like, I really think there's something here. I'd love, like, if you'd be down for, like, coming on board. Like, I'm sure we've got, like, enough work for you to do here." And then Blossom has absolutely ripped since then, and it's been incredible. So that's been the journey.
Are you pleased that you took that time out to do Couply? Is there a lot of stuff that you brought with you to Blossom?
Yeah, yeah, like, being a founder, as you guys know, it is just like the ultimate test and you discover the good things about yourself, you discover the bad things about yourself, you discover things that you're good at, and then you discover things that you're absolutely fucking shit at, and then you have to do those shit things the most. It's like, and it almost is like the thing that you're bad at, it just becomes so, if you can't either fix it or grind through it or get someone else to do it, like your business is basically fucked, right? You have to be good and competent and be able to fix the things that you're not good and competent at quickly. I learned so much about myself. I grew so much as a person. I feel so much more of a weapon now for any startup. So it was absolutely amazing. Even though it didn't get the fairy tale ending that we were gunning for in the middle, sorry, at the beginning, where we have landed is still amazing. Couply is profitable. It's making money. It's helping couples, and we are very close to paying all our investors back. And then it will make me and my co-founder an incredible passive income for as long as we keep it going. And we are still working on it. We still meet every weekend, a few hours, and then meet with the team once a month. So it's chill. We're more business owners than startup founders, but it's beautiful, and I'm very proud of it.
Cool.
All right, let's get into the fun part. I'm super excited to get into the details here. So, what I'd like to get into kind of overall is like what makes a B2C app tick as opposed to, we have B2B on one side and B2C is very specific, right? And you have expertise now at three different B2C kind of apps platforms. So I really want to dive into that. So first and foremost, one thing that I found when I listen to kind of podcasts and read articles and stuff, you hear someone tell their story, and usually it's like a founder and they've worked at like pretty much one startup, maybe two, but if it's two, they're usually kind of similar, kind of related. So you have a really unique perspective on this because you've worked on three very different B2C apps, right? Because on the one, like you said, right, the Wattpad folks that you worked with, like these are the folks that are at Comic-Con and those are probably not the same people that are on the social investing platform, right? Like these are very, very different folks. And then Couply is a whole, completely perpendicular thing as well, where you have it's just like anyone who's in a relationship could potentially be a user of Couply. So my first question for you on this is, what are the things that you found to be consistent across these three like super different apps?
Yeah, I think the things that I found the most consistent has just been the importance of user experience of consumer. Consumer is absolutely cutthroat when it comes to UX, and like if you give your users a bad experience, you're toast. You're toast. The standard for consumer apps now is set so high, I think, that if you're not giving people a pretty magical experience, they're going to find an app that does. And so in this space, I think that for me was the biggest overlap of all three of them. Um, that and I think like a little bit on the user psychology side, the surprise and delight moments if you can make it happen, thinking of creative ways to keep folks engaged, trying to create your own app culture if you can with the user, and that kind of experience I think is really important. Something that I know you guys are really good at. But I think of the apps that I use, um, like Strava, like I use a lot of Blossom, and you can kind of tell when you're in an app and you feel like that app has like a good culture, you
Mm.
vibe with it and you want to be part of it. So I think those are all things. Duolingo is another one, obviously, that we have to give so much credit to, and just being so creative and fun.
Mm.
Like the Duo Owl, all of the fun that they had with that. When you're with Duolingo, you get it, you get the jokes. It reminds me almost of a really great author quote. Um, so Neil Gaiman always says that you should be able to drop a reader in any page of your story and they would know which book it is. And I think that is a really interesting idea for an app. You should be able to drop your user into any screen of an app and they'd know which app it is. And so if you were to read any page of Harry Potter, you're going to know immediately. You know from the story, you know from the words, you know, oh, they're talking about muggles, they're talking about this. I get it.
Hmm.
You drop yourself in a Game of Thrones, any page of Game of Thrones, you know they're talking about dragons, they're talking about they have little phrases that everyone says, and you really know what it is. And I think like that's something that we can take to app design and that psychology of an app too.
Mm.
Have there been any consistent, because you mentioned how it's important to kind of nail the user experience, but
Yeah.
I imagine the user experience, like you just said, the kind of culture, the vibe is different with every app, but is there any overlap that you found? Like for example, I don't know, the onboarding experience needs to be pretty much the same regardless of the app, or you need to get someone to make the account, sign in, whatever, or is it really like case by case, totally different for each app?
No, you're right. It's very similar. Find out what problem are they there to solve? Why are they at the app? How did they hear about it? I think gathering that information for us now as app founders is incredibly important. Um, making sure that if a user pushes a button, it is linked to something. So on Couply, we did an experiment that really helped improve it. We said, hey, why are you using this app? What problem is it that what do you want to work on in your relationship? Click that applies. And then we saw people click intimacy, sex and intimacy, really big one. Communication, another big one that people would click. Values is like was less so. Conflict is less so. It was really like the big one, intimacy and communication. It's typically men that want to work on intimacy, women that work on communication. So then we'd suggest those two courses for the ones that people to start with, and that I think like seemed to work really well. On Blossom, it's a case of like how far are you along in your investing journey? On Wattpad, it's like, do you want to be an author or are you looking for books to discover? Two different onboarding journeys there. I think that's it there. But if a user's pushing a button, it should be for a reason, and that action should be rewarded as they go through the flows, as they onboard, and all of that kind of stuff. Oh, I see. I'm looking at my notes here as well. I do think one thing as well. I think, and this is moving out of the details, Jason, but more in the overarching. But I'll
Sure,
talk
yeah.
about this more later. But the creator aspect has been really big for all of them too. And I think what I started to do way too late, like the last few months of Couply, was I really focused on building relationships with creators. And I wish I'd have done that from day one. I think the things that stopped me from doing it was a sense of imposter syndrome in that, and I hate saying it. I don't believe in this, but I definitely realized that there was something holding me back in those early days. And
Mm.
I wish I'd had doubled down on this way sooner in the journey. And that was partnering with amazing creators. I did it too little, too late, and I didn't scale it. And I think if I'd have done that really early on, it would have definitely helped the app grow bigger in a better way. Um, so I think like working with amazing creators is something that's very powerful. It's something that Blossom has absolutely smashed. And it was something that was the core part of Wattpad was building relationships with incredible creators. Uh, yeah, that's something too.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about that, but I think we'll get into that more a little bit later. So I'm going to hold
Yeah,
my questions for now. But I have a lot of questions about creators because of at Campfire we work with creators as well, and we've been hit or miss with it. Like sometimes we find some that it works really well, especially in the early days. Then later on we can't really get it to work. So I'm going
yeah,
to have some questions for you about that for sure.
great.
But before we do that, so I asked about the similarities that have been in the three apps that you've worked at. So what about the differences? Have there been any things that are just like, you're at Wattpad and things were one way, and then you went to start Couply or you went to work at Blossom, and just this one thing that you thought you knew how it worked was just totally different in the new context.
Yeah, the I noticed that with Couply, we got most of our downloads organically. So we spent a lot of time on App Store listing keywords, all of that kind of stuff. With Blossom, we spent a bunch of time on App Store listing keywords, didn't do anything. People aren't searching for a social network for investors or like, oh, can I have a social,
Mm.
like, is there a social network for investors? No one's looking for that. But once they find it, they absolutely love it. And so for Blossom being something new-ish, it's like it's a case of kind of bringing people in, and then because the experience is so good, and they love it so much, then it grows and they invite more people in. But it was interesting with Blossom wasn't like there are people looking for these communities, but they're not necessarily looking for an app for this community, if that makes sense. People are joining Reddit subgroups, they're using Facebook,
That's
they're
what I was going
hacking
to say.
Discord, they're in WhatsApp, they're in all these dispersed places where they're getting like stock advice, financial information, and sharing like ideas around which ETFs am I going to buy, this, that. But bringing them all together into an app that's built from the ground up to service that user that wasn't a problem that they were necessarily thinking about. Whereas Couply, you're like, then maybe there's an app that could help my relationship, and people would search that. For Wattpad, people would search free books. Where can I get free books? And then they see that there's 100 million free books or whatever it is on Wattpad. So let's check it out. Another place that Wattpad got you people when pe got users was people would Google like where can I share my book or how do I become an author? And then many people listed Wattpad as like a place for authors to begin. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a big one as far as like where does your top of funnel come from? Does it come from
hmm
search? People already know what they're looking
Yeah.
for, or do you have to kind of go find them in a more creative way?
Yeah. So I did spend a lot of time on ASO with Blossom and it did nothing. I was like, okay. I was like, guys, this is not something that's gonna work for you like it worked for me.
Yeah. All right, let's pivot over to design and kind of growth. So I want to talk about network effects in particular,
Yeah.
since that's something that's been so crucial. I imagine at both Blossom and Wattpad. So yeah, tell me about network effects and maybe how that plays into how you think these sorts of consumer apps should be designed. Like how can you kind of structure a consumer app so that it's conducive to having network effects, and how do those network effects result in like real growth?
Yeah. And this is something that was just like absolutely drilled into us at Wattpad. And then as the founders of Wattpad, so Alan and Ivan are the founders of Wattpad, and Alan and Eva, Alan's wife, Eva Lau, started Two Small Fish Ventures, which is a VC firm. And Eva and Alan would often speak about network effects and like the beauty of them and kind of their thinking around them, their framework, which was always around this uh, assets framework. And so it comes with the A stands for the atomic unit. So what is the atomic unit, the most important thing in the product? In Wattpad, the atomic unit, the thing that powers the product is a book. So a novel that a user has written is the most powerful thing. That's what brings all the users. The users are there to read them. On Reddit, it is a Reddit post. On Blossom, it's your portfolio. So if you think of a book and a portfolio, right? A book, you guys know this, it will take an author 1 to 3 years to write a novel. It takes a long freaking time. It's a massive amount of stored value in that one thing that they then put on the internet for free for everyone to go and enjoy that value. On Blossom, the stored value is your portfolio. It's taken users, some of these, for the older investors, like decades, decades of their life to build this beautiful portfolio with these incredibly well-researched companies that have great fundamentals. They're going to make you money forever. And then they put it on Blossom for free, and we can go and tire kick it. It's very similar to reading a book. I'm reading your portfolio. I'm looking at your thesis. I'm understanding your companies. I'm getting all that value for free that someone's putting on Blossom. So the way that Blossom works and what makes it different from a Reddit to other social platforms is that Blossom links with your brokerage. So if I'm on Robinhood, it links to my Robinhood account. Jason, you're on a different brokerage, Vanguard or whatever, it links to your Vanguard account. Now we're having a conversation. You can see the percentage holdings of my portfolio, not the dollar amount, but the percentage holdings. And I can see the percentage holdings of your portfolio. We can now see these two atomic units that are very, very exciting. So that's like the first part. The second part is seed. So this is the asset framework. So A, atomic unit, S, seed the supply side. So this is around bringing on authors, bringing on investors. And the way that Wattpad did this was the Gutenberg library of free books that seeded the supply side. So they were able to stick whatever it was, 150, 200 books onto Wattpad for free. Where the magic started to happen is when they built the ability for a user to share their own book, and a user posted their own book, and that book ended up going viral on Wattpad back in the day. Where it really kicked off is when Anna Todd wrote the After series on Wattpad that broke the internet. It got 1 billion reads of her book. It's a billion with a B. And this was a fan fiction story, One Direction, but it ended up getting picked up and turned into a book series, which got translated into 7 different languages. It became she became a best-selling author in all those different geos, and then got a movie deal, which has gone on to, I think, do like $400 million worth of dollars of that movie series. So that's like seeding the supply side. And then for Blossom, it was working with the creators and having them share their portfolio on Blossom too. The S stand for scale the demand side. That's like advertise to bring in users, readers on Wattpad, investors on Blossom. The E stands for enlarge the network effect. So this is around like continuing to grow it. Now users also become seeders. So I now came on Blossom to see other people's portfolio. I'm now showing my portfolio. And then the T is track proprietary insights. So this is the idea of now your data that you're building, your data set becomes valuable. Wattpad, it meant we knew in advance, we knew in advance that BTS would be absolutely massive boy band. We knew it in 2016. And I went and presented that to media agencies and marketing agencies and said, hey guys, there's this Korean band that's about to break the internet. And with Blossom, we can see what investors are investing in real time, which is even more valuable because we can see where the market is going immediately. We can also see sentiment across different verticals of investing. These proprietary insights become very valuable as well. That's the asset framework, which is kind of interesting way of thinking about network effects.
I guess I was going to ask the end there, those insights, what would you then go and do with those? Are you talking to third parties with those, or using them internally, or kind of both?
Yeah, you're selling them. You are ideally, you want to be integrating with other people or finding a way to monetize them would be a more accurate thing. So for Wattpad, it was being able to sell the signal that a piece of IP and or a trend was coming up. So for BTS, we knew that BTS was going to be absolutely disgustingly massive because we could see the fan fiction start to rise exponentially. And with that, that meant it was an early signal that this band, this group was coming in. That meant a whole load of things. That meant K-pop was going to be getting big. That meant perhaps other things around like Korea or interest around Korea was going to get big. We started to see a lot more Korean-based books. And I mean, that was been absolutely true Like you look at the success of Squid Game, you look at all the interest in Korea, you look at the explosion of like all of this Korea culture that we've seen come across, and we were predicting that back in 2015, 2016. So yeah, that's kind of the way
That's really
to
interesting.
leverage some of the insights.
So how did you actually monetize that? Like, what kind of company do you go to, and what do you like specifically offer them? Is it like we'll
Yeah.
give you a stream of insights every month and some sort of deliverable, and that's you kind of pay a subscription price to that, or how does that kind of
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, stream with insights everyone. So if you're making a movie, you have to put a massive upfront investment into something that will hopefully pay it back to you in 1 year, 2 years time, right? So for a movie company, you want to understand like what trends are happening and why are they happening. So that was very, very interesting to the entertainment industry to be able to predict things that are going to be big next year. Hey guys, maybe look at some Korean shows because our prediction, reading like books in particular, are a really good early predictor of what's going to be big in other entertainment models in a few years' time. So those are the kind of insights that you're able to sell or
So you
partner
sold
with.
those on like an annual contract or something like that, where you would just give them steady stream?
This was sold by our entertainment part that I wasn't
Mm, got
that
it.
I didn't personally do. I'd have loved to have sold this kind of thing, but this was I think wrapped up in deals around IP. In other words, also having first looks. So for an entertainment company, they might want to first look at a book that's getting really hot on Wattpad before anyone else.
It kind of makes sense to me then. Amazon Prime launching out of Amazon because they have the leading indicator, right? So they can just say, the bookstores are telling us this is what's going to be great. Let's go make a TV show about it.
All right, so back to the two S's. This is where I think I had my biggest question. So first of all, as far as seeding the supply side, you mentioned that one example of the Wattpad story that went absolutely crazy and hit
Hmm.
billion with a B. Was that luck, or was that like were there steps that you guys took to facilitate something like that happening? Like, is there anything that we can kind of try to do to help see the supply side in a way that makes it more likely to kind of blow up? Obviously, not necessarily that scale, but like to put something in place so that that's a little bit more likely.
Um, I think when I think back, these are like the early days of Wattpad, right? It's almost like you see the supply side, but those probably won't be the things that end up hitting. It's going to be your own homegrown talent that really hits. But seeding the supply side is going to bring in, it's going to give initial users something to get their teeth into. So for Blossom, it was bringing in some big finance creators and having them share their portfolio. Think about that for a CTA. You've been following a YouTuber for a long time, and they're like, hey, by the way, if you want to see everything I'm investing in, like check me out on Blossom. You're like, oh, okay, that's really cool. I can see exactly what they're doing. Also get notifications when they're buying stuff. This is pretty sweet. For for Wattpad, they did tons of partnerships with like really big writers back in the day. Like, hey, Margaret Atwood was sort of known as the fairy godmother of Wattpad. She put a bunch of her stories on Wattpad. She loves technology. She co-wrote a story with a Wattpadder. All of these kind of projects with early writers. Brandon Sanderson had one of his books on there. So you had all of these big authors that were engaged in Wattpad in a way, but they weren't really like in the community, which is such a shame. Like Brandon Sanderson had more followers on Wattpad than he had on Twitter at one point, but he obviously wasn't engaging them. Maybe he didn't get it or he liked Twitter, whatever it was. And so what ends up happening is like your homegrown talent is the one that really starts to come up. So on Blossom, we've seen that. While many YouTubers have their stuff on Blossom, they post on there, they get engagement. Some of the homegrown talent that we have are like amazing thought leaders on the platform. And you've got people there that are giving you just genius insights on like a daily basis. They've ridden market ups and downs. They might be in their 60s and they're rich and retired and they're like shining a light and guiding you towards your own retirement, lighting the way for you because they've been through a bunch of ups and downs. They're like, hey guys, don't panic. Here's the path. This is what we do. I went through this in 87, 2000, like it's really, really powerful. So that's kind of what that seed the supply side means. It's like getting people on there early to give your users something to do. But I do think that it ends up being the homegrown talent that really smashes it. Do you guys see that? What about, I'm curious how it works for you guys.
Well, right now we're starting to do exactly this. I mean, we've had already like we're at the point where we have around 1,000 monetized books on Campfire, and so it's still kind of in the very early stages, small, still
Hmm.
a small library, and we're in the process now of trying to kind of seed our platform with like well-known authors' books, basically. Like for example, we have Warbreaker on Campfire now as well, which was the one that was on Wattpad. And we've just literally today actually we released a collaboration with Delum Hatch, which does the House Witch trilogy, which became pretty well known. So I mean, we're approaching it that way. We're trying to find authors that we have kind of relationships with, or that we can get in contact with, and offering to like work with them to put together something that's unique to Campfire and that can be that kind of seed like piece of content for new readers. As far as which one's going to hit, we haven't had one really hit yet, so I can't say. But I think there's a good chance that it could be homegrown, but we'll see. We're in that process. All right, so on scaling the demand side, and kind of with that, like designing for network effects, and kind of designing an app that can scale. Um, where do you start with scaling the demand side? Because it's kind of chicken egg problem, right? You need to have enough of a seed. Like, how do you know when you have enough seed content that you can now start to really put on the gas on the demand side? And then what is that? Like, what does that look like? Is it running ads? Is it, I don't know, is it like working with influencers? Maybe we can get into the
Yeah.
the creator stuff now. Like, how does that
Yeah.
growth look?
Um, I think for app founders, it's like this is the horrific puzzle that you have to solve, right? It's like trying to solve a Rubik's cube that's made out of glass, and you have to do it before your bloody hands are like too messed up to be able to work on it anymore. Um, it's I can speak to, I think it's best speaking to the way Blossom are doing it, because I think it's the most clear and structured that I've ever seen. And that's because the founder, Max, is like ex-McKinsey analyst, incredibly detail oriented, and really, really good at building out models and formulas that keep us all incredibly accountable. And so you combine that with our CMO, who's Brandon Beavis, which is one of Canada's like OG most respected finance YouTubers, and you get this really nice crossover where one deeply understands creators, how they work, how they want to work, and then one that is able to track everything and build systems to help us track everything. So through that, we have, and then myself that's able to bring in enough revenue to the platform where it makes it all kind of worth it. Because if your money per user or your revenue per user is like decently high, now all of a sudden everything works. If it's not, and you're just relying on subscription or low priced sales, then it's going to become much, much harder, and you're going to need to be much more creative in the way that you do that. So with Blossom, they have the growth from Blossom comes from 1/3 is paid ads across Meta and TikTok and Reddit, other channels that we're experimenting with, podcasts, whatever it is that Brandon is experimenting with. 1/3 is word of mouth, which is the most important. Amazing. We know that that eventually builds up into that beautiful K curve, which is what we all want to see take us to the promised land. And then 1/3 comes from the creators. And because Brandon is such a well-respected creator, he has built a network of 125 of the largest finance creators in North America. And so the call to action is so seamless. It's like, hey, here's all the things that I'm doing in the markets right now. Want to see more? Follow me on Blossom. You can see what I'm doing in real time and look at my portfolio. And so that's very simply how the team have cracked this growth nut, and it's all profitable. But 30% of the revenue comes from subscriptions, which most apps only have that 30%. And that's really fucking hard, guys. Like to be a subscription app, it's so bloody hard, in my opinion. And then 70% of our revenue is coming from brand partnerships. So
Wow.
that gives us a lot of juice to continue to scale this out. And there's
I
really
think that's
big,
the
yeah,
I think that's the kind of thing that like your average person looking in on a company like this would have no idea that
no idea.
70% of the revenue could come from brand partnerships. They wouldn't even know what that means. I mean, I didn't really even know what that would look like. Like, I think you just assume, oh, they do a subscription, they must make their money on subscriptions. But really, if you have something that you can get good insights on, you could potentially like, 3x your revenue if you figure out how to sell it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's just understanding your audience, right? It's like, okay, I have a valuable audience that are looking for X. Even with Couply, like doing it as a side project, we still have like a pretty decent roster of brand partners that are looking for a millennial couples audience. Like obviously all of the couples therapy platforms like BetterHelp, Regain, those guys, and other ones too. Like a lot of people are looking for a millennial couples audience, home insurance, mortgages. Like all of these guys are looking for couples.
Hmm.
So even then, it's possible to monetize it. And for you guys as well, just understanding your audience and then finding like hopefully thoughtful and engaging ways to monetize that audience that isn't going to piss them off too much. And when I say monetize, I really mean like a brand experience that isn't going to be annoying and a fucking pop up or like something that just like really makes the app experience shit is like again sort of like the next stage.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into partnerships since that's your bread and butter. And this is a really fun one because again, I think it's something that your average like layman doesn't really understand in the context of a B2C app. So what does your day-to-day look like at either Wattpad or Blossom?
Yeah. My day-to-day work is finding the right clients for these platforms that are going to stay with them and grow with them over the long term. That's like really the core way how I think about it. It's like who is our perfect client that we can serve the best for the longest time. And if you can focus in and find those folks, then you're going to be golden. So with Wattpad, it was building a relationship with all of the entertainment providers. Anyone that's doing movies, TVs, and books was like the big core. And then anyone that was also wanted to tap into a Gen Z female audience as well. So that's femcare, some CPG, these kind of clients as well were important. For Blossom, it's anyone that is looking for a millennial investor between the ages of 25 and 45. And given the wealth transfer and the way that the financial markets are going, it's a lot of people that need to be reaching and educating this investor. That's always how I start thinking, and then it goes out from there. What, how are people currently solving this problem? Would they find our solutions interesting? Letting them know about the solution and getting into that side of things. So my core day, thinking about who we can help, um, reaching out to them in a very thoughtful way, building relationships with them, and then helping them essentially is how I think about it.
Cool. So yeah, let's get into that process then, because it sounds like this is pretty much like a step-by-step process for any individual client.
Yeah,
So how do you do
yeah,
it? What's the magic?
yeah. I mean, this is like we're getting into like proper sales here, but this is like app sales for brands. So I think it's like really important. And again, this can give you like a lot of revenue. Over the last, since I've been working at Blossom, I brought in around $2 million for the company, and we're a seed stage company. So it's not insignificant at all. And we're just scratching the surface. Like we are absolutely scratching the surface on what we can do here. This is just the first year with our products being quite well made, but I know that we're going to be able to do a heck of a lot more damage in this space. So here's how to think about brand partnerships for apps. The first one, identify a client that you can help long term. That's very important. So there's like a few different things that I like to think about when I'm identifying our perfect client. One, do they have a repeating budget? It's not something that you just want to work with them one time. Are they always going to be working with you? So if it's for films, you're working with a film studio, how often do they have films coming out? And like Amazon, Netflix, these guys, how often do they have shows coming out? All the freaking time, and they always need eyeballs, they always need attention. So repeating budget. Then repeating budget towards your audience. They are looking for your audience. They've got time frame specifically to spend that budget. You don't want to be working with someone that has no time frame, there's no burning platform, there's nothing that they need to do here. Like they actually need to be able to spend it. Then they need to be interested in the things that you have. They need to be able to integrate with you technically. As you start to work with different people, they're going to have different technical integration requests. Media agencies want different tracking tags. Other people want different data. And you've got to make sure that you can align on that integration. And then finally, you've got to have a realistic success metrics that both of you can kind of agree on. So is it visits to their website? Is it impressions on what they're doing? Is it clicks? Like making sure that you're kind of focused. And this is like, I think if you're, as you start to qualify your potential partners using this kind of rubrics, it takes you from squirrel hunting, where anything could be like a potential client. You end up just chasing squirrels to being hyper specific and hunting for stags. I think a stag hunt versus a squirrel hunt feels like a very, very different thing. With a stag hunt, you're organized, you are focused, you know what you're looking at. You're looking at this big creature that's going to feed you for a long, long time, right? And it's a very, very deliberate process going towards working with that partner versus a squirrel, you're sort of like chasing after it, expending a bunch of energy, and then it's not going to last long term anyway. So that's kind of how I think about that, just identifying the that's just on like the identification process. Um, and then I think like the other few things that I'll go through quite quickly is like cultivation is very important. To build a long-term relationship, you don't want to rush it too much. You want to cultivate a real relationship, make sure you truly understand their problems, and then really serve them very well. Um, I think like the client cultivation piece is something that a lot of people miss out on, and they try and get it to be transactional very, very fast. At the end of the day, you're working with humans, and humans want to feel like that they're working with another human being. One time, Wattpad was trying to do a deal. Wattpad's marketing team was trying to do a deal with like a big photo supplier, like a stock photographer supplier, and they got put on with their salesperson, and it was the most fucking brutal call I've ever had in my life, ever. I couldn't believe that marketing people had to go through this experience. It was insane. So the marketing people said, "Hey, we want to do this event. You've got all these users. We've got all these users. We had this idea of like using certain photography, teaming up your photographers with our authors, and then doing some short stories and like doing a bunch of branding around it." And then the salesperson was like, "Okay, yeah. So like, what are your stock photography problems right now, and how can we help you reach those needs?" And just wanted to go through this like checklist. She was literally reading this like qualification checklist, and the marketing team like saying that like, "No, we're looking to see if we can do this thing together, like, and this is how it worked." And then she just went to the next question, and then the next question, and it was absolutely brutal. It was like interacting with a lesser version of ChatGPT. I didn't even feel like I was talking to a human being. I felt like I was talking to an inferior AI. So yeah, and all of us have had like a bad sales experience, right? I think all of us have like had that horrible feeling where someone knocks on your door and you like arrive, you open it up and you're like cooking something and you're in your pajamas and they're like trying to sell you some shit that you don't want, or a charity person on the street stopping you with like some bullshit question to try and like interrupt you, and or like if you try and buy a car, like so many bad sales experience that I think we have. So like human experience, like super important.
All right, cool. So from my perspective, I am not someone who is, let's say, a natural social butterfly. I can talk and I can hang out with people and stuff, but like I'm not the networking type that will like book a trip to go to a conference just because maybe I might meet someone interesting. So my big question is like, let's say you've identified that potential stag, right? That like perfect client. They're big. They have potentially could be recurring revenue for you that could last a long time. But at the same time, like you said, you don't want to ruin it and like move too fast and get too transactional about it. Maybe you don't have like a direct kind of connection or path to them. Like where do you even start building the relationship, and then when do you know to like, let's say, go in for the kill?
And I wouldn't say that there's any like maybe the stag analogy like isn't good for the going in for the kill, because there's this pressure in like sales of like closing. And that's definitely not the way that I do sales, because there's no big close. There's no like big reveal where you put this big price on and like you try and trap them into it somehow. It's like a very ongoing process. I guess it's more like you have like this food and you're putting like the food towards the stag, and then the stag is coming towards you, and then you're like putting like, "Can I put like a harness on you?" And they're like, "Yeah, okay, you can put a harness. Okay, cool. Can I put this saddle on you? Is that okay?" They're like, "Okay, yeah, put a saddle. Can I get on you for a couple of minutes? Like, how would you feel about that?" Like, "Okay, yeah." And it's like, "All right, let's ride into the sunset together. Let's fucking go." So maybe that's like a more accurate analogy.
That's the most beautiful analogy I've ever heard for doing sales. Did you just come up with that, or did you get that from somewhere? Because that's great.
I just came up with it. But that's definitely much more of the feeling for it. It's like a slow like thing, like let's get comfortable and then ride off into the sunset together.
So is it really like a feel thing? Do I just have to like kind of go out there and try, and I'm gonna get kicked in the face once for moving too fast, or one's gonna run away because I'm too slow?
Yeah. I guess the way I think about it like this. All right, so we've got a client, we've been wanting to work with them for a very long time. We know they'd be perfect. We know we'd be awesome. When they work with us, it's going to be fucking awesome. And so, first thing that I did was we have a few clients that we're working with already. So, getting your first client is like part of the battle. Now, when I came to Blossom, they already had one client that they absolutely loved. Right, okay, we're doing a little bit of an event. We're going to invite this client. We're going to invite some of our creators that everyone is very curious about in this space. And we've also got some insights. Okay, so I've got insights, so I'm going to attract detail-oriented people. I've got creators, so I'm going to attract status-oriented people and socialites. And then I've got another client, so I'm going to attract competitive people. So now I've got all three things that covers like three major parts of the different personality types, right? You have people that are detail-oriented, you have people that are socialites and story-oriented, and then you have people that are winners, that are oriented by sort of dominance and winning. So I've got all of these different three elements, and it's just as simple. It's a dinner or it's a small client event. I've got a nice bar, come, grab some cocktails, learn something, meet some people. It's a nice little mix of all three, see what your competitors are doing. You do that event, you invite this person, you go to the top and say, hey, so-and-so, you might know about us. We're the largest social network for X, or we're fastest growing, or whatever the niche is. And we're hosting like a really small event here. We'd love you to attend. It's just with like the leaders from your industry. It's non-transferable invitation, but if you can make it, we'd love to have you. That's like a very nice way, I think, of doing an introduction. It's classy. It's not too salesy. It feels like you're giving them value, and you do have something of value to give. You've got something very interesting there that I would attend, and I did attend. When I was an app founder, I got outreach every single day, like you guys do. You get outreach every single day by B2B folks. I had two which were customized. One was from Datadog and one was from TikTok. So of the outreach that I got, two were actually personalized to me and what I was doing. The rest were written by ChatGPT. And if you think that we can't tell, ChatGPT wrote your fucking outreach email, then you're wrong. It's just so obvious, right? Like you guys know, like if you get, it's just like, oh, I hope the weather is nice and I saw that the weather is 23 degrees in Toronto today. And like, have you checked out, like, insert this restaurant? Like, fuck off. Like, if you can't even spend the time, if you can't even spend like 1 minute to actually see who I am, why would I spend 1 minute in responding to you? Like, no.
Yep.
Datadog wrote me a really good customized email that was just like actually about my problems or whatever it was. And TikTok invited me to a dinner to meet interesting creators in my vertical and meet other app founders. Are you fucking kidding me? You bet I'm going to that dinner, right? I want to meet interesting creators. I want to meet app founders. Like, damn straight, this is amazing. So that's kind of like an initial way of bringing people into your orbit. And you can see how that's attracting people to you versus pushing out in some ways. Look, both works. My sales, I'm looking to do deals that are 200K, 100K or more, right? So for me, it's worth taking a little bit more time to build a good relationship because I'm not asking for a small amount of money. I'm not asking for like $1,000 or something that can be done on a credit card. I'm asking for something big. And so because it's going to be big, I'm going to take my time and do it very carefully and properly because we only need like 20 or 25 big clients, and then once we get all these clients to like $1 million, like we're starting to like get into some serious money here. So that's kind of how I think about it.
That's great. So what's the next steps? We can just move through the chronology here. So you've identified, you've now figured out how to like get them in the same room as you. You started talking to them. Things are kind of going well.
Yeah, you want to put your product on their radar if it's of interest. So it's like you're going to show them a quick success story, shout out some of the clients that you have in the room. And when you meet them, say, hey, we'd love to put our product on your radar if you're open to that. Maybe they say yes, maybe they say no. Say what if they say no, that's fine. Why not? What's the hold up? Have you done any work like this before? Who else do you work with? Is this new to you? Is it scary to you? Why? Okay, cool. We've got some more insights coming out. Can we share those to you? Just slowly building a relationship, building helpful. And then you can go and meet with them. You can show them some of the case studies, some of the work that you've done previously, and come prepared with some ideas of how you could best serve them based on ideally some of the common problems that people are seeing in the industry, or perhaps some of the goals that they might have. On Blossom, we have all of these insights around people that are holding their products. We know what other products they're holding, competitive products, the things that people are interested in. So if we're coming and meeting with folks, we've got some interesting stuff to share and do. At Wattpad, we had examples of previous campaigns that had done really well, cool things that we'd done, amazing contests, and ways that we brought brands into the forefront amongst this Gen Z audience that are obsessed with stories. So we'd share some of those things, share some of the insights, share some of the other things that we've seen that have done well. Like just be helpful. It's our job and our role to be helpful. So as experts in our industry, we bring a bit of expertise to the table. Hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's some people that are doing some cool stuff. Here's some other creators that are just starting to blow up that you should definitely partner with. Here's someone that did an awesome campaign with Reddit. I'm like more than happy to introduce you. Like that kind of stuff. Being this fully fleshed out person that is interested in the space and has expertise, you're gonna be so much more of a dynamic offering to a senior person at a company, right? Versus just one person that does one tool-like thing. So then you bring them in, you put an idea on their table, you have your pricing set up. How does this pricing feel? Would that work for you guys? Yes, no, great. And then you start slowly moving towards, okay, do you have any campaigns coming up that would be interesting for us to work together? Yeah, actually, we've got this big movie coming out. It's targeted for Gen Z. It's going to be out in summer. We'd love to see some ideas for you for that. Amazing. What kind of budget typically do you use when you're working with people like us? Okay, cool. That budget's a little bit low for us. Do you think you'd be able to get it to like, would 30K or 40K be doable? Yeah, that might be doable. Okay, cool. So if we put something towards that, we make it a really good deal. Would you like that? Yeah. Let's see something. Okay, cool. So now we have something that we're working against and we're building towards. And that's kind of like the way it goes. Like very simple, very collaborative, and building for the long term, right? So then we do one campaign. It goes well. Okay, guys, listen. That campaign smashed it. We're really happy with how it went. How about this? We're getting low on inventory this year. Why don't you book in 4 campaigns with us? We've got 4 movies coming out next year. We'll do all 4 for you, but we'll do a bit of a deal. So you'll save 20%, and we will reserve this inventory so we can do these amazing 4 campaigns for you next year. Now we've got a proper partnership going. And guess what? We've got these insights coming out each month. We'll come and present them to you. We'll show you some new interesting things that are happening. This way you're now building a partnership. You're helping them, they're helping you. It's a little bit locked in for the long term. And I think that's a really beautiful way of building a brand partnership and a sales partnership that will last you for multiple years, because you want clients to stay with you for multiple years.
At Blossom, are your partnerships with different companies like very similar in the deliverables and stuff? Like you're able to combine any of the work that you do on one on the others, or is each one kind of its own beast?
Each one is definitely its own beast. But sometimes they use similar systems, and sometimes they use similar systems. That's been good. So often as well with finance, it's much riskier from like a fiduciary perspective or a compliance perspective, I should say. And so certainly it gives more comfort to the client when they see someone else that's done it. They're like, great, someone else has managed to get this through compliance, now we can do it. So finance are much less, much more risk averse. In entertainment, it was much more like, hey, let's try and do something new and different. Let's push the envelope as much as we can. So yeah.
One thing I was going to mention when you were talking about events, I mean, it would be awesome for even us really, to host events or other, developers and things like that. But for guys that you don't have like the bandwidth to host their own event, is there another way you could do the similar thing where you're creating a network and leaning into that space without creating your own event, perhaps sponsoring other people's events or something like that?
I think you can still host a mini. I guess like the event is like one tactic. There's absolutely other ways to do it. I've just found this to be very effective. Yeah, it means getting on a plane. It means going to places. But these are all like strategic advantages, right? This is why these salespeople travel so much. Like it's not. Everyone's like, oh, you're in Miami, you're in Vegas, oh, you're going to New York. Yes. And we're not there for like fucking funsies, we're there to make stuff happen. There are other ways. And look, there are salespeople out there that are making like this mass email stuff work. It's not my style. It's not my type of sales. I don't do it. I've got like probably like an 80% response rate to like my outbounds or something like that, something ridiculous. So I just find personalized, less is more, be thoughtful. So in that case, when you're doing that, it makes sense to go there. It makes sense to like press the flesh and meet people. I think it's a differentiator. I think as soon as you start to, the less personalized, the less fancy you get, the more bland, the more likely people are to say no. I know gifting works sometimes, like really creative gifting can like take the place because you're still putting something physical in someone's hands. Like you're still giving them something that is personal. But as soon as you start to degrade it, as soon as it feels less special, less fancy, you're not going to get a C-suite to attend. Like, why would they go? They're just going to say no. And it's easy for them to say no. I always think about this creator I work with, his name is Murphy. Fucking animal, like so good. And he spends 4 hours on a 20-second video. And I was like, that's such an insane, 20-second to 1 minute video. He spends 4 hours on it. I was like, why would you spend 4 hours to make a video that's a minute long? And he said, well, I noticed if I spent 4 hours on my 1 minute video, it was more likely to get 1 million views. And if I spent less than 4 hours, then it would get between like 10K and 20K. So there's an outsized return on me spending longer on it, if that makes sense.
How did you survive COVID, man? That's what I want to know.
Wine kits, set gifting, sending stuff to people. I did not do well in COVID. And my girlfriend is an introvert, and she just like loved it. And she never went back to the office. She was like, "Oh, this is my happy place." You saw me in COVID. What do you mean? I came to Portugal. That's where we
I
met.
know, but that was already
I left.
after, right? That was already.
No, in Canada, man. Canada was locked down.
Oh.
Then I went to Portugal and met you at a conference filled with 9,000 people, barely anyone wearing a mask. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Alrighty, so marketing will be our last quick topic. So back to the creator thing. You already mentioned kind of at a high level how the creator thing works. I guess I'm curious about the more like nitty gritty of it, especially the kind of management of so many creators, because that's something that we've seen at Campfire is just like, if you want to build a small army of creators, even like 10, 20, 30, it very quickly becomes like a lot of people that you kind of need to stay on top of. You need to make sure they're
Full-time
posting the right
job.
stuff. Yeah, you need to analyze stuff. So is there anything that can be done to kind of make that more efficient, or is it just you need you need just man hours to do it?
You need a spreadsheet and you need someone that's really, really good at this, and then it's like a full-time job, I think. So Brandon looks after our creators. He's got an edge because he is a massive YouTuber, so he knows how like creators think. He knows the things that they need and knows how he wanted to be compensated and how he wanted to be treated, and could just take that into building the Blossom community. And so the Blossom creator community is 125 strong. They have different rewards and different things that unlock depending on how many downloads that they're driving to Blossom, all of which is tracked. And then those getting to different levels unlock different perks. And then there's a lot outside of that kind of affiliate model, you might say, because most creators are going to say no to an affiliate model. Outside of that, there is the trips that Blossom throws, there's the speaking opportunities, there's the event series that we run. So we host a series of events in Toronto, New York, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver, that bring 2,000 retail investors together. The creators get speaking opportunities. They also get brand introductions. So I'm hosting an event in New York. I'm bringing some creators, bringing some brand partnerships. Hopefully some business is going to happen for them there. And they do mastermindy type things as well. So for creators, many of them have like a specific creator that they might have followed or been inspired by, and getting to meet them, go on a cruise with them. So we went on a cruise in November with the creators going around the Bahamas, and actually the creators themselves paid for that cruise, but it was hosting it and organizing it and being the container to have other people that are really serious about their craft. It's incredibly valuable. You guys know, like if you get in a good group of app founders or some gangsters that have done some shit, like you're gonna learn a lot from those guys, right? And so just building that community of people has been the key. But it's an art and a science and a whole thing.
So these creators that so basically what you've explained is like you build out a kind of program where
Yep.
the creator starts when they partner up with
Yep.
you. They start at the base level and they can kind of make their way up. Um, those rewards, are these mostly like cash, aside from
Yep.
let's say the cruises and the events and these sort of kind of extra stuff, like the core of it? Are we talking mostly cash and
Yeah,
it's
it's
like
cash for
pure
downloads.
affiliate
Yeah,
cash for
cash for
downloads?
downloads, and then I'd say the less tangible is the community, and it's the community, to be honest. I mean, community is the core of everything that Blossom does, and it's
Hmm.
building a creator community where people come in, make friends, meet other creators, boost each other's stuff. Like it's building a big friendship network. It can be really lonely being a creator, you know. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
But I've seen from talking to creators that like you said, in general, affiliate is something that kind of scares them away because they want guaranteed cash, right? If they can take a couple $1,000s, they'll take that over some affiliate thing because they don't have faith that they'll be able to drive enough downloads. So from what I gather, from what I'm hearing is like, in order to get past that, you need to make up for it with this intangible stuff, with this community stuff. Is that right? And if you
big
don't
time,
have that,
big
then you
time.
probably won't go anywhere. So then
Yeah.
that leads right into my big question. Let's say you're on the smaller side as a company. You don't have the time or the money even for to host a cruise or to get, throw some big event. Where can you start? What kind of intangibles can you start, or community things can you start with kind of from the beginning, to
Equity.
build out the creator equity? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Give them a piece. This is probably what I would have done if I'd have to do Couply again. I'd have been more generous with equity with larger creators, and I'd have brought them on probably as paid. I think I would have got some more salaries out there, and then brought them on in like formal capacity. If they were like obsessed with couples content and this is what they wanted to do for the rest of their life, I'd have started bringing them in to be like a brand and start organizing and building this community. That's probably what I would have done. I'd have done it one salary, equity, and then I'd offered equity probably to the first few like bigger creators that I could get on. Uh, and I would use that to build the baseline of it and kind of see the network effects and start building that out. Is probably how to have done it. So like I'd have done a little bit of equity plus affiliate plus the ability to invest in the product as well. All of this changes when you have product market fit, by the way. So that's
Mm.
very important. If you have product market fit and you know that your company is going to be a fucking unicorn, then it's in their best interest to get some equity and invest. And so I think Blossom has seen a very significant number of their creators invest their own personal money in the company as well. So now they own a piece of the company and they're helping grow it. I think that's
Mm.
super powerful.
So is it a mistake to go too hard on the creator thing before you have product market fit, because you might just give away equity and kind of go nowhere with it, and otherwise you're not
But,
going to
th-
really attract these people?
but then it doesn't matter anyway, because if you don't have product market fit, you're dead anyway.
Right. So you think that even without product market fit, you should
It's
just do
still,
whatever
I
you
think
can
I
to.
think it's still worth it in the beginning. I mean, we went pretty hard on the creator thing at the end of Coupley, and to be honest, that was the end when I achieved my goal of getting Coupley mentioned, having a conversation about my app on School of Greatness, Lewis Howes, like the fifth biggest podcast in America. I think it was 200,000 people listening to that conversation, 1 minute about my app. I thought that was my Oprah Winfrey moment. Lewis Howes has had tons of couples educators on, right? He's had like everyone on. And I thought, like, okay, if anyone gets it, like he got it in the interview. I was like, this is it. We are gonna blow up. And we did blow up for one day. Got 2,700 downloads, and then it just went back down, and then it just carried on being flat. There was an okay curve there. Um, and that's okay. Like I discovered it. Like otherwise, I think I'd have spent another 100 grand still like trying different things, only to still come back to the same result where we didn't have the kind of product market fit that can scale up.
All right. So what's your big focus now for the next, let's say, 5 years? Doubling down on Blossom. You have any other side projects that have come up in the back of your mind that's made you lose sleep? Like what's on the horizon for you?
I've started sleeping again after being an app founder. I didn't sleep properly for those 2 years, and I'm finally sleeping again, which is amazing. Next up, Blossom is doing their fundraise right now. Very, very exciting. Half of it's already committed, and they're fundraising from the community as well, which is a great hack. So I think I'm feeling really positive about that. Going for the Series A this time next year. Let's go. strapped in. I'm ready for the ride. Blossom feels very similar to Wattpad, that, like you said, had a $600 million exit. I think given that Wattpad had a Gen Z female audience that was focused in fandoms and romance, and Blossom has a millennial audience of investors, I think the exit will be massive. I'm very, very, very excited for that. I'm loving keeping Couply going as a side project. That's going nowhere. We're going to be rolling out in every language around the world over the next few months, which is cool. And then I'm still dabbling in writing. I'm an author at heart, guys. So I've been slowly typing up my next book. Definitely don't have quite as much time as I want to, but the next book is coming together, and I got a little note from Wattpad that they needed notes on my novel as it was being considered by some movie folk. So let's go. Maybe that will happen as well, which would just be like an incredible end of the year. But overall, feeling happy, feeling excited. Yeah, that's. I know you asked me 5 years. I gave you 1 year. Ask me again in a year.
That's fine. I'll take it. I'll take it. All right. Thanks. Where can people find you on the web?
Yeah. You guys can find me on LinkedIn at Tim Johnson Blossom, and then on Instagram at TigerTimJ. And I think those are my most active places. Yeah, happy to have a chat with any app founder, anyone in consumer, especially if you're looking at doing brand partnership stuff. That's definitely the area that I know the most about, and I'm happy to talk with you more about it. Anyone here, because it's a tough world, and we've got to help each other.
Awesome, Tim, you're the man. Thanks. That was a great chat.
All right, cheers, guys. Thank you.
All righty.